How's it going, everybody? Thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. This is my review of a suspense thriller from 1968, No Way to Treat a Lady. This was directed by Jack Smight and it's based on a 1964 book written by William Goldman. Stars Rod Steiger, George Segal, and Lee Remick. Rod Steiger is one of those great actors from back in the day who was in quite a few classics movies like On the Waterfront. He played Marlon Brando's brother Charlie in that film. He was also in the Heat of the Night, a great film from the 60s, one of my personal favorites, where he played police chief Bill Gillespie. He was also an ill-fated priest in the original The Amityville Horror from 1979. And growing up throughout the 90s as a teenager, saw him pop up in movies like 1999's The Hurricane, End of Days. He was also in The Specialist with Sylvester Stallone and Mars Attacks. So, Rod Steiger is one of those guys that kept working even though, he got older, still trying to keep his career going throughout the 90s before he passed on in the early 2000s, but a great actor. George Segal. First time I ever saw George Segal has to be when I went to the movies back in '89 with my mom to go see Look Who's Talking in the theater. George Segal played the character of Albert, and audiences today might know him as the grandpa from the TV show The Goldbergs. But yeah, he recently passed away. He's a guy that was in a lot of movies, a really good character actor. But I didn't know until I started watching more older films that he was actually a leading man. He was in movies like Carbon Copy with Denzel Washington in the early 80s. Before that, he was in a kick ass movie called Roller Coaster, a really great 1970s little disaster action film. He was also in the original Fun with Dick and Jane, which the Jim Carrey 2000s comedy is based on. Movies, he was also in The Owl and the Pussycat with Barbara Streisand, good little romantic comedy from the 60s. So another actor that uh, kept working well into his older age and always, stayed busy. So yeah, two really great actors in this film. So in this film, young George Segal plays Detective Morris Brummel. He has a good relationship with his mother, played by Eileen Eckhart, who is pretty funny in her scenes whenever she gives her son a hard time about this or that. And uh, he is basically on the trail of a serial killer in the form of Rod Steiger, who is going around posing as different people. He has different disguises, he uses different accents, and basically he knocks on some random stranger's door, gets them to confide in him. He comes in and he strangles women basically. Lee Remick does a very good job in this movie as Kate Palmer. Kate Palmer is a neighbor of one of the victims of the killer, and after one of the murders, the police come by and ask questions. That's how Detective Morris Brummel meets her, and you can tell he's a little sweet on her, and she can kind of tell too. And eventually, he gets the courage to ask her out. As far as Rod Steiger's character regarding names, he doesn't really have one because throughout the film, they never really give him one because you find out his true name at the end. But throughout the movie, he goes by different names because he's passing himself off as different people when he knocks on somebody's door pretending to be like a clergyman or a police officer at one time. At one point, he passes himself off as a gay wig salesman, and he always knows just what to say and how to say it. He has a real smooth way of speaking and, very articulate and just very charming. And the women are very quick to drop their guard after just a few minutes of being with him just because he's so good at what he does. And it's very creepy. It feels very eerie and very real the way it happens and the way he goes about it getting close enough to actually commit these murders. And he gets cocky. He starts to phone the cops and even toying with them. Whenever the killer is out there committing the murders, he's usually wearing a costume and putting on a fake accent. And so, in the scenes where he calls the cops, it's usually after one of the murders. And he usually calls the cops using the exact same voice and accent that he just used with the victims. So he stays in character as whoever he's supposed to be that day. And so he'll call up Brummel in different accents after each of the different murders. At a certain point in the film, Brummel is actually taken off of the case, and when the killer finds out, he gets very angry with the police, and when he calls on the phone, he won't talk to anybody except for Brummel, and so they end up having to put him back on the case. And because the killer is a bit too obsessed with Detective Brummel, he begins to target those close to him, and that is how he ends up getting his sights fixed eventually on Kate, the new love interest. Actor Rod Steiger is great in this film. He is chilling in his scenes whenever he enters somebody's apartment like a chameleon, always pretending to be this or that, and because he's always putting on different accents, it's like he's giving multiple performances. One, he's playing the clergyman or the cop or the wig salesman guy or whatever. It always feels like a different persona, even though it's the same guy, basically the same evil guy underneath all these personas. George Segal is fantastic. He's a great leading man. I really like the scenes with him and Lee Remick. They have a great rapport. They feel very natural as an on-screen couple, and you do feel the sparks between the two of them. As this is a thriller from the 1960s, there is violence in the film, but I wouldn't call the film overly violent. You won't hardly see any blood in the film, but there are scenes of innocent women being strangled from time to time, which is essentially the plot of the film. Whether you're watching the scenes when the killer is about to strike, or the police procedural part of the film, or the romantic comedy aspects of the film with Lee Remick and George Segal's characters hooking up, it all feels real. There's something that feels very realistic about this world because of the nature of the acting, the performances, the dialogue. It all feels like it's steeped in some kind of reality, and so it doesn't really feel like there is a clash of tones, even though there is a romantic comedy mixed in here with this thriller, with this suspense thriller, and it's a pretty good mix. Though this movie is about a serial killer, this movie is not without humor, and it does have quite a bit of dark humor for good measure. But I really enjoy this movie, and if you enjoy a good thriller, I highly recommend it. It's a good cat and mouse suspenseful thriller. I do think you should check out if you're into stuff like this. No Way to Treat a Lady from 1968. I give this movie 3.5 stars. This is my copy of No Way to Treat a Lady right here on DVD. Rod Steiger, Lee Remick, George Segal. Thank you very much for watching this classic movie review. I very much appreciate it. If you're into the classics, if you're into movies, if you're into this kind of thing, hit the bell, subscribe. Don't forget to comment, share, like. It always helps out. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support. I always appreciate you. Please don't forget to look out for the next classic movie review. Everybody take care of each other. God bless. Peace out.